For today's lesson, we are going to be learning how to find unknown angles in triangles. And there is one theorem that is going to apply here. I call it the triangle sum theorem. Um, the triangle sum theorem basically says that if you take every single angle of a triangle and lay them end to end, they are going to have a total sum of 180 degrees. And so I've got this visual here for you where I'm going to take each one of these angles and I'm going to put them from end to end. Doesn't really matter what the order is. Let me get this so that they match up nicely. This guy matches up nicely. And when you put all of the corners in end to end, you get a straight line, which proves that the sum of the three angles is 180 degrees. So with that being the case, if we know two of the three angles, we can always figure out the third one by simple algebra. In this case, you'd add the 70 and the 70 makes 140. What do you add to 140 to give you 180? This angle here would have to measure 40 degrees. So that's what we will be doing today. And of course, each problem is going to get a little bit more complex until the last examples that we work on are going to be the most complex of all the problems we'll see related to this theorem. I'll let you go ahead and read through all of this. If you want to just pause the video for a little bit to read through it, feel free. I'm going to assume you're going to do that, and now everything is unpaused. So we've got a triangle. It's got three angles, obviously. Two of the angles are given. Here's the third. We're going to solve for x. So it says here, using what you've learned about angles, can you find the measure of this angle? And the answer is yes, you can. Go ahead, pause the video, and explain how you know that you can figure out what the missing angle is. Okay, now that you've unpaused, assuming that you followed my directions, what is the response here? The answer is yes, you can by using the triangle sum theorem. So here, if we were to just estimate, I would round this to 40 degrees. I'd round that to 60 degrees. You add them together, that's about 100 degrees. And so that means that the missing angle would have to be an 80-degree angle, because 40 plus 60 plus 80 is 180. Now it ends up being, I think, 77, but that's an estimate. It's about 80 degrees. So first thing you should always do whenever you're solving these problems is think of an estimate, what would make sense, and then solve the problem to see if your answer comes close to your estimate. So here, 41 plus 62 plus x equals 180. That adds up to 103. What number do you add to 103 to give you 180? Yes, x is equal to 77 degrees. Pretty sure that's what I said earlier. 77 degrees comes close to 80. That should be correct. Now, I'm not giving you a resource page. I'm just going to show you these three pictures. I recommend that you draw these triangles into your journal and list the given degrees, and we're solving in this triangle for y, and this triangle for z, and this triangle for w. So here on the left, if you want to go ahead and copy down each one of those equations, and then take the time to solve for y, pause the video, and then when we come back, we'll see if you get the same thing that I got. Okay, welcome back. Let's take a look at the work. 90 plus 30 is 120, so that means that 120 plus y has to be 180, and that means that y has to be 60 degrees. So if you got y is equal to 60 degrees, you did a great job. For this triangle, triangle 2, we have 55 plus 55 plus z is equal to 180. That means that 110 plus z is equal to 180, which means that z has to be 70 degrees. So if you got 70 degrees for angle z, great job. And for the last triangle, triangle 3, if it's 112 plus 15 plus w equals 180, then 127 plus w equals 180, and w has to be 53 degrees. So If you got all three of those answers correct, you understand this concept. Great job. Let's do a little bit more practice. This is no different than the ones we saw in the previous example. You don't necessarily have to copy A down if you don't want to, but if you do want to and you want to figure it out, once again, you can pause the video at any time, figure out what you think the answer is, and then replay the video, and you can look at my work to see what I did. B, you should probably copy that down because this is a little bit different than the other examples we've seen so far. So far on A, we know that 30 plus 115 plus x has to equal 180. So whatever you add to 145, that's going to be the measure of angle x. What is the measure of angle x? Looks like it is going to be 35 degrees. For B, this is a different type of a situation where you know you've got an equilateral triangle, so you know that all three angles have to have the same measure. So instead of saying x plus x plus x, you might as well just write it as 3x. So what number do you multiply times 3 to give you 180? At this point, if you want to start using your calculators to help you, that's fine. It's an equilateral triangle, meaning it's also an equal angular triangle, which means all three angles are the same measure. 60 plus 60 plus 60 is 180 degrees. All right, these four examples are a little bit more complicated. I'm going to have you go ahead and stop the video, copy down each one of these shapes, and then work through, see if you can figure out each one of the angle measures. Starting with triangle A, you've got x plus 2x plus 30 has to equal 180, so I just combined the x's and made it 3x plus 30 equals 180. After subtracting 30 from each side, you get 3x is equal to 150, so how much does each angle have to measure? If you said 50 degrees, you are correct. For triangle B, we see that x plus 10 plus x plus 90 has to equal 180 degrees. So combining like terms, we can rewrite that as 2x plus 100 equals 180, which means that two x's have to equal 80, and therefore each x will be 40 degrees. So if you said for triangle B that x was 40 degrees, great job. All right, C and D are a lot more complex. Let's see how well you did on these. First of all, I'm going to focus on figuring out what this angle is right here, because I need to know what that angle is in order to figure out what x is and use triangle sum theorem for this triangle here. How do I figure out what this angle is? Well, that angle is supplementary to this angle, which means the two of them have to add up to 180 degrees. So this one has to be an 88-degree angle. So notice how I put that right there. So now I know that x plus 36 plus 88 has to equal 180, which means that x plus 124 is equal to 180. And what number do you add to 124 to give you 180? That number is 56. So angle x in this triangle, in this configuration, I should say, is equal to 56 degrees. Now, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that little splotch right there. And now I'm going to focus on the bigger triangle. Notice how this has three angles here. There's one there, which we know is 36 degrees. We've got a second angle here, which we know is 116. And these two combined are going to complete the deal to make this equal to 180 degrees. So I'm going to say that 36 plus 116 plus 15 plus the y has to equal 180 degrees. This angle right here, the combined angle, is the y plus 15. But I'm going to just add the 15 with the 116 and the 36 first to give us 167 is equal, or I'm sorry, 167 plus y is equal to 180, which means, what do you add to 167 to give you 180? That angle must be 13 degrees. So y is equal to 13 degrees in this particular configuration. And here for D, I've gone through and I've put in some angles that I know have to be true. For instance, because these are intersecting lines, the vertical angles are always going to be equal to each other. So if this given angle of 105 degrees is 105, so is this angle across from it. And since these two angles and these two angles make a straight line, they are supplementary, which makes this 75 and this 75. I'm not sure we're going to need that one to be written in, but I wrote it in anyway. And since we know this angle is 105 and this is 54, this has to be 121 to add up to 180 degrees. This is given as a 90-degree angle. And since that's 21, what do you add to 21 to give you 90? This angle must be 69 degrees. And it's these two angles that we need right here, the 75-degree angle and the 69-degree angle, to help us figure out what this angle is going to be. And if we know what this one is, we'll know what this one is, because they're both the same. So I've written 75 plus 69 plus x is equal to 180, which means that x plus 144 is equal to 180, which means that the measure of angle x must be 180 minus 144. It is 36 degrees. So now that we know this is 36 degrees, we also know this is 36, and we can now solve for y, because y has to be the number added to 105 degrees plus the 36 degrees. And so when we add those together, y plus 141 equals 180, and 180 minus 141 is 39 degrees. So our final angle, angle y, is 39 degrees. I think you'll find that triangle sum theorem is not overly complicated. Just make sure that you draw your triangles and record all of the angle measures, and then just work through the algebra and solve for the missing variable, and you will have your answer. Good luck with your homework.